Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. Well, hey friends, welcome back to another Saturday episodes, Put It Into Practice. I am excited to be in your earbuds this week. So, when this episode releases, I will be at a volleyball tournament, which we do a lot of these days in our household. But we have this weekend, we have a volleyball tournament. And then the next weekend, we have a volleyball tournament. And then my oldest daughter, her club season ends. And then she goes right into conditioning for high school. So we are, volleyball family over here, but I want to give a shout out to some new listeners that I have, and they know who they are. They also play volleyball, and I just want to give them a special welcome to the podcast. So thanks everybody for tuning in and for being here. And if you are new to the show, a little bit about the show. So every Wednesday I release an episode that is for therapists, where we talk about professional development. We talk about growing a private practice. We talk about deciding if you want to be in private practice. We talk about a lot of different topics. And the Saturday episodes are for just anyone who wants to level up on their emotional or mental health. And I get asked a bunch of questions that I could answer on this show. So if you have a question and you would like me to answer it, I will answer it anonymously, of course. You can find me on Instagram, Lisa Mustard Podcaster. You can send me a message there. You can also find a contact form on my website, which is lisamustard.com. Look for the contact form or tab at the bottom of the homepage. You can send me a question there, and I will do my best to answer your question. Now, don't forget, this podcast is more for education. It's not clinical advice. It's not medical advice. If you are looking for a professional therapist, then I suggest that you go to the show notes to find somebody that you can work with. Okay, so last Saturday, we talked about attachment styles, and I talked about secure attachment, and I talked about anxious, preoccupied attachment. And I put on my Instagram story, I think it was yesterday, I shared a post from the holistic psychologist, and she talks about, what does a safe and secure relationship look like? And my hope and my wish and my dream for everybody out there is that you find or have safe and secure relationships in your life. And if you don't, know that they exist and that they are out there. And I encourage you to seek them out. Now, the anxious, preoccupied attachment is one that I've struggled with over the years, and I went into detail in last week's episode. I'm not going to go so much into detail today, but if you want to hear more about my childhood and about what I went through and how I got this anxious, preoccupied attachment, then go back and listen to the episode 2 episodes before this. Today, I want to share about dismissive avoidant attachment and fearful avoidant attachment. And also, I want to share that, you could have different traits from these different types of attachment styles, and you can actually evolve into a different attachment styles as you grow and evolve, because you're going to have life experiences along the way that are going to shape and form you. Some of them might heal you from past hurts, but some of them also might bring up stuff that you've experienced in the past. And, if you don't have the coping skills or the support system to handle them or deal with them, then you might find yourself kind of moving into the other attachment styles and maybe showing some signs or symptoms of those. Now, just because you have an attachment style like one of these doesn't mean that you are a damaged or bad person. It just means this is how you tend to show up in relationships, and what your expectations are of relationships are going to be mirrored back to you by what you put out there. Okay, so let's talk about the first one, which is going to be the dismissive avoidant attachment. So people with dismissive avoidant attachment style tend to avoid intimacy and emotional connection, and they may come across as emotionally distant and have difficulty expressing their emotions. So I'm going to give you a scenario of what that is going to look like. So Jenny, she's a 30-year-old woman, has been in a relationship with her partner, Michael, for several months. And while she enjoys spending time with him, she finds herself pulling away whenever they start to get too close. She's hesitant to express her emotions and often comes across as emotionally distant. And one day, Michael expresses his desire to take their relationship to the next level by moving in together. And Jenny feels overwhelmed by this and starts to shut down emotionally. She tells Michael that she needs some time to think and pulls away from him, avoiding his calls and messages. Michael feels hurt and confused by her behavior, not understanding why she's avoiding him. He tries to reach out to her, but she continues to keep her distance, unwilling to express her emotions or engage in intimate conversations. Jenny's dismissive, avoidant attachment style is causing her to struggle with emotional intimacy and avoid close relationships. Her fear of vulnerability and intimacy is causing her to distance herself from Michael, even though she cares for him. This is creating tension and uncertainty in their relationship, making it difficult for them to move forward together. Does this sound like you or somebody that you're in relationship with? Maybe you've been wondering why the person pulls away when you thought you had a good thing going, and you're asking questions and working to get more vulnerable with him or her, and that person pulls away, and all of a sudden you feel like, oh my gosh, what have I done? It's not you, it's them. So how does someone develop a dismissive avoidant attachment? It's typically developed in childhood as a result of experiences that emphasize self-reliance and independence while minimizing the need for emotional closeness or intimacy. And some factors that may contribute to the development of this attachment style include parental emotional unavailability. So children who grow up with emotionally unavailable or dismissive parents may develop a dismissive avoidant attachment style as a way to cope with their need for emotional support and closeness. So think about your childhood and what it was like. How emotionally available were your parents or your guardians, okay? Overemphasis on independence. Children who are encouraged to be independent and self-sufficient from an early age may develop a dismissive avoidant attachment style as a way to prioritize self-reliance over emotional intimacy. Now, my friends who are Gen Xers grew up in the 80s. Now I know a lot of us were latchkey kids, and we came home to an empty house and we had to take care of ourselves, and it was kind of forced upon us to be independent pretty early and self-sufficient. Now, that's part of it. I suppose maybe how we were raised. We were kind of raised to be very self-reliant. And I don't know if it's necessarily a trend with Gen Xers, but some of us do tend to have that independent streak in us. And maybe we are, as parents, do we put that on our kids? So just think about if this is showing up for you and how it might be playing out in your parenting. Because for me, my attachment stuff shows up in how I parent, and I'm always working on it. So just something to think about. All right. The next one is trauma or abuse. Children who experience trauma or abuse may develop a dismissive avoidant attachment style as a way to cope with their feelings of vulnerability and avoid being hurt again. Now, I know I told you guys a little bit about my life in the last episode and the trauma that I experienced, off and on throughout my childhood. Do I believe that plays into my attachment style? Heck, yes, I do. So, but at the same time, I'm aware of it, and I'm constantly trying to work at being better and, staying in the moment and paying attention to how I'm reacting and responding to things. Unresolved trauma is a huge, huge factor for a lot of mental health issues. We're finding more and more, so many therapists I talk to will say, the longer I do this work, the more I realize that trauma is really such a big factor in people's lives, unresolved trauma.
Are you thinking of starting a podcast this year? Or perhaps you're a seasoned podcaster and you're looking for someone to take the podcast production off your plate. If so, we are currently taking on new clients and would love to be your production partner of choice. My name is Chelsea Weaver, and I am the owner of Chelsea Weaver Podcasting. I offer podcast startup packages, audio and video editing, plus show notes, graphics, and reels. So consider us a one-stop shop for all your podcast needs. A little bit about me: I have over 5+ years of experience in audio and video production. I am an Army veteran who served in Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom. I partner with other female veterans who are also experienced in podcast production and social media services. We'd love to chat with you about your podcasting and social media needs, and can be reached at chelseaweaverpodcasting.com. That's CHELSEAWEAVER podcasting.com.
The next factor is going to be that culture or family values. So some cultures or families may place a higher value on independence and self-reliance or over emotional intimacy and vulnerability, leading children to develop a dismissive, avoidant attachment style. I can't really blanket statement this, but I'm going to. So take it with a grain of salt because it's not true for every family. And that's the thing about all of this conversation around attachment styles. Everything is nuanced. And just because I say, this is what I noticed doesn't mean that everything is like that. Okay. So, for example, I work with a lot of military service members, and I will see a lot of independence and self-reliance over emotional intimacy and vulnerability. And that's just the culture, that's the conditioning. And sometimes it's generational, right? Because a lot of service members, their parents, their dad was in the military, their mom was in the military, their granddad was in the military. So it's a generational thing. I'm not saying there's anything good or bad about it. It's just something to know that might be a factor for you if you are kind of wondering about your attachment style. So pay attention to these things and really think and take a look at, how you were raised, where your stuff comes from. It's important. Like I said, your attachment styles can change over time with increased self-awareness and intentional efforts to develop more secure attachment styles through therapy or other forms of support. So I had a relationship in my 20s where my anxious, preoccupied attachment issues were really coming out when I was dating somebody who was dismissive, avoidant attachment. And let me tell you, that is a recipe for the relationship not going very far if neither of you are aware of what's going on in the relationship. I just want to put that out there. So the avoidant, fearful, and the dismissive, avoidant is not a good. I'm sorry, let me say that again. The anxious, preoccupied, and the dismissive, avoidant attachment styles do not play well together. Usually there's a lot of stuff in those relationships. So I'm just going to point that out because I'm kind of reflecting here on my life and my relationships. And I'm like, hey, at times I have also been dismissive, avoidant too, though. So like I said, it can change over the years. Okay, so let's talk about the next type of attachment, which is fearful avoidant. So here's a scenario. Sophie, a 27-year-old woman, has been in a relationship with her partner, Alex, for several months. While she enjoys spending time with him, she finds herself feeling anxious and overwhelmed whenever they get too close. She worries that if she gets too attached to Alex, he will hurt her or abandon her. One day, Alex tells Sophie that he loves her and wants to take the relationship to the next level by moving in together, and she feels a rush of panic and fear, unable to express her emotions or respond to his affection. She starts to avoid him, canceling plans and creating distance between them. Alex feels confused and hurt by Sophie's sudden change in behavior, not understanding why she's pulling away from him, and he tries to talk to her, but Sophie continues to push him away, afraid of getting too close. Sophie's fearful avoidant attachment style is causing her to struggle with emotional intimacy and fear of rejection or abandonment. Her fear of being hurt or rejected is causing her to distance herself from Alex, even though she cares for him. This is creating tension and uncertainty in the relationship, making it difficult for them to move forward together. And it's important to note that individuals that with fearful avoidant attachment styles often have a history of childhood trauma or abuse, which can cause them to feel afraid of emotional intimacy and develop negative beliefs about themselves and others. So how does someone develop a fearful avoidant attachment? Let's talk about the different factors that might contribute to the development of this attachment style. So, number one would be childhood trauma or abuse. So, those who experience trauma or abuse, such as physical or sexual abuse, neglect, or exposure to domestic violence, may develop a fearful avoidant attachment style as a way to cope with fear and confusion about relationships. There's also possibly inconsistent parenting. Children who experience inconsistent parenting, whether their caregivers alternate between being nurturing and loving and being cold and neglectful, may develop a fearful avoidant attachment style as a way to cope with their confusion and fear about the unpredictability of relationships. And disorganized family dynamics may also play a role. Children who grow up in families with disorganized or chaotic dynamics, such as those with substance abuse, mental illness, or frequent family conflict, may develop a fearful avoidant attachment style as a way to cope with the uncertainty and fear of unpredictable situations. Parental loss or separation is another factor. Those who experience parental loss or separation, such as through death, divorce, or abandonment, may develop a fearful avoidant attachment style as a way to cope with their fear of rejection or loss. So, with fearful avoidant, it seems as though, if one reading these factors, that they've been through quite a bit of trauma, because any of these things could contribute to trauma. Death in a family, history of substance abuse in the family, history of mental illness. The child is uncertain of what they're going to get from their caregiver or parent. And so they're unsure and they're fearful and they're worried. And this is how they cope. This is the way that they grow up, and they start to show these symptoms of what Sophie was showing in the scenario with her boyfriend, Alex. So when I was working in substance abuse, this was the attachment style that I noticed a good bit, was the fearful avoidant. A lot of the people who came to our program, thinking back over the years of what they were dealing with, this is the trauma that kind of they went through, and as a way to cope, they developed, a substance abuse disorder or an addiction. So there's a lot to consider here. If you are finding yourself fearful, avoidant, attachments is your kind of go-to how you relate to other people, I would highly, highly recommend for you to get some support, talk to a therapist. And there is hope. I mean, like I said, you can definitely change. You can definitely work on how you show up in your relationships. And a therapist can help you do that. And, any of these attachment styles, I guess what it comes back to is if you are having a hard time, functioning, having a hard time getting through the day, having a hard time in your relationships with, romantic relationships, friend relationships, work relationships, if this stuff is starting to show up in your relationships, then I would definitely recommend talking to somebody and getting going with a counselor. And I have put resources in the show notes for you guys to learn more about where you can get some support. I'll put some information in there too about maybe some more about attachment styles. If this is something that you're really interested in learning more about, I'll add some more resources in the show notes. But in the meantime, I hope you guys have found this little 2-part series helpful on attachment styles. If you have questions about it, feel free to find me on Instagram, send me an email, go to my contact form on my website. If you have a topic you would like me to cover, don't forget I am here for you to answer your questions. I will do my best to answer your question. And of course, I will do it anonymously. Don't forget to give me a follow over on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you like to hang out. And I hope you guys have a great Saturday. And I will be back soon with some more Put It Into Practice episodes. You guys take care. It's important to stress that these episodes are not meant to take the place of any work you're doing with your therapist or doctor. In fact, please run these ideas by your counselor or doctor before you act on them to make sure you are ready for them or even a fit for the suggestions. I can't stress this enough. Each person is unique and their situation is unique. So please talk to your doctor or therapist before starting anything new that I might be suggesting. And the Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard and the information provided by me is solely intended for informational and entertainment purposes and is not a substitute for advice, diagnosis, or treatment regarding medical or mental health conditions. Although I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, the views expressed on this site, on my website, on the podcast, or any related content should not be taken for medical or psychiatric advice. Always consult your physician before making any decisions related to your physical or mental health. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine.
Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content.
And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.